Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. I'm kind of surprised we're sitting down for an Xbox news update so quickly after the news broke. I thought things would really slow down. They'd keep everything nice and quiet in the Xbox community because it is absolute chaos out there. People are arguing left and right over the delays. Now, if you're a gamer or not, it's just getting ugly for Xbox right now. The momentum they had has completely flipped, so I thought things would be relatively quiet for them, but we do have some very interesting updates to go through in this video. A lot of them, in fact. A brand new patent has been submitted, and for those of you out there who are like me and love collecting physical video games, you are in luck, possibly, if they go through with this, of course. Also, we have an update on Fable, one that's causing a little bit of worry, and given recent reports on the initiative, Undead Labs, I think some of that worry is well founded. So we'll look into a job listing that has been amended since some news sites had picked it up. We're also going to be talking about Furi and what happened with that situation there. An indie developer known as the Game Bakers had refused to put the latest free DLC out for Furi, and Xbox fans are pissed, but now they're providing financial reasoning and going more in-depth on it. Last but not least, the Gears of War Master Chief Collection style game may be coming this year. And we'll talk about that because it's exciting, but we'll talk about it. So if you're new here, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Consider subscribing. We do a lot of Xbox news and coverage here on the channel. We also like to do reviews when games are actually coming out, but there haven't been all that many as of late. So with that, thank you so much for giving me some of your time today. Let's talk about this patent first and foremost. So Xbox had submitted a patent titled Software Ownership Validation of Optical Discs Using a Secondary Drive. And you can see a figure here of what the idea for this patent is. What effectively it does, and I'm going to save you all this tons of reading you can see here that I did, is that their pitch is that in recent years, there's been a trend of consuming digital video games. And as more and more people move to this side of things, they may be hesitant to do so because they've built up a physical game collection for so long that they're just unable to purchase a game a second time and justify that. So Xbox is looking for a way to keep people in this ecosystem and encourage them to even maybe buy the cheaper digital console like the Series S. So what they're pitching here is an idea where you can take a secondary disk drive, you can connect it to your Xbox Series S, for example, and you'd be able to put in discs for games that you already own, and it would basically validate the key itself on the disc and allow you to grab the game off the storefront and not have to buy the game a second time. I'm biased here. I'm a physical game collector. I tried to stay away from digital games just because of ownership, and I have a lot of issues with Xbox's DRM setup personally, and how they're not really fighting for preservation, even though they're one of the biggest advocates with their backwards compatibility program. But I digress. This is something I would really like to see because it's good for the consumer. It makes the Xbox Series S kind of exciting for those of you who've been building up physical collections, that if you buy this console, that you will have access to those games. That is all there is to it. I don't know how much more we need to sell people on it. Does it suck that you have to buy a secondary device of some kind? Of course. I think the best route here would be a way to digitally verify that you have the physical copy in hand. How they do that, I actually don't know, but I think that would be the most optimal route instead of buying this little temporary disk drive that you'll use every now and then. I would say, well, then you could use it moving forward, and maybe you could with certain Xbox Series games that you buy and go, I want to have Starfield complete in box, this one disc with probably no manual inside it. I want to have that complete in box because this game means something to me. Now you can buy that, put it in the disk drive, and it can link there. Otherwise, most people buying this are trying to move everything to digital. Maybe they'll do that and then they'll get rid of their collection and sell it off to someone like me who's looking to inherit some goods. So I think this is good for gaming in general if they do move forward with it. Again, this is a patent, so don't treat it as an announcement, a confirmation of them doing anything. Xbox even has a patent for a handheld device of their own called like the X-Boy, which is something that we've talked about a lot on the channel, something I do hope they do with the recent success of the Steam Deck and, of course, the love for the Nintendo Switch and the excitement for a Switch Pro. I feel like Xbox has to get involved in the handheld space with a dedicated Game Pass, native Game Pass, by the way, device of some kind. That's what's going on with backwards compatibility. Now we move on to Gears of War Collection. This has been in the rumor mill for a while. This has been long demanded by Xbox fans, and it's really exciting to know that this may actually happen. So this is an update from Pure Xbox, where they had taken a clip from Xbox Era's podcast and said the following. Speaking on the podcast this week, journalist Special Nick stated that he was of the belief that a collection is coming this year, and teased that if you go from November 2021 to November 2022 and you look at Microsoft's big game output, it could wind up being Halo, Gears, and Forza. Here are the exact quotes, and then we'll discuss. There was a rumor a while back where I mentioned that there is another Microsoft franchise that was getting the Master Chief Collection type treatment. I'm of the belief that is coming this year. Maybe that'll be their E3 announcement. Everyone guessed it. I'm not going to say it, but everyone's guessed it. What makes me laugh, though, is that if you go from November 2021 to November 2022 and you look at Microsoft's big output, it could wind up being Halo, Gears, and Forza. This kinda stings given the timing. I don't blame, I imagine, the coalition working on this. I don't blame them at all, because this was supposed to be, in my eyes, if it were to be announced at the game showcase, kind of a big piece of the puzzle for their fall, right? It wasn't going to be the big star, but it would be an exciting addition on top of things like Starfield, Redfall. Having them fill in these big shoes hurts pretty much every game in the proximity of this delay. And now, especially with it being a remaster collection, a lot of people will go, that's what you got? Here's your old games. And especially when we've been all familiar with what we call in Defining Duke the burger, fries, and shake combo that Xbox has used for a while with your Halo, Forza, and Gears. Here we are again deep in the generation, and we're getting the combo again. And it's possible that this fall we also get Forza Motorsport 8. So yeah, it's again one of those situations where those two games, to me personally, I know they're very exciting for Xbox fans. I love Gears. I just played through all of them at the beginning of last year, so don't get me wrong, love Gears. I am excited for a, say, Marcus Phoenix collection is what it's been called by a lot of fans. That to me sounds excellent. But with those two in the mix, Forza and Gears, that to me was the supplemental pieces to the appetizers to the main course. So these will still be big staples in the fall window for Xbox. I have no doubt about that. But for me, they ring a little more hollow in light of the delay. It's something we'll just have to shake off over time and just take them as they are. Looking at it a little less biased, I have to say that this has me pumped. You look at the way the Gears franchise has been handled, where you have Gears 1 Ultimate Edition, then Gears 2 and 3 you play in back compat, then of course Gears 4 and Gears 5 are Xbox One. This does really need some type of Master Chief Collection treatment, especially because a lot of people haven't liked where Gears of War 4 and 5's multiplayer had gone in certain respects, and especially in the microtransaction department. So to me, I feel like this does make a lot of sense for them to say, let's just revive the old stuff so we sort of have this cushion, because it may be a while before we see Gears of War 6. We know they're taking their time learning Unreal Engine 5, and they're going to use that engine for Gears 6 without a shadow of a doubt. And so then you look at what has been rumored a smaller game from them outside of this collection, and I feel like it'll be some time where right now this Master Chief Collection treatment is perfect timing for Gears, and it has been in demand for a while, so I'm glad that it looks like they're finally going to deliver it. It will be a solid staple in the fall. I don't think a remaster collection should be expected to fill in the shoes of something like Starfield or Redfall, but happy to see it, and I know a lot of Gears fans will be stoked when this is inevitably announced. And of course, aside from the multiplayer, the stories in these games are great, so to be able to re-experience those will be a really good time. I can't wait to run through all of them again in co-op, provided this is real, which I think is a pretty safe bet. So with that, let's move on to Fable. Normally I don't cover comic book gaming because they fall into the same pit as like Game Rant and all these other bullshit websites that perpetuate fake news constantly and they trick you with their titles. This is a rare moment where they actually didn't mislead me. I saw the title, I went, okay, I'll bite. Let's see what it's about. So the title of the article is Fable Job Listing Causes Worry Among Xbox Fans. And then I end up looking at this job listing here for a senior rendering engineer, where the article writes that, quote, Playground Games is looking for an experienced senior rendering specialist to join the Fable team working on our brand new open world action RPG title. You will join the team and project at an early stage, giving you the rare opportunity to shape the technology used to build a large-scale AAA title. Now, what stands out about this is early stages of development. This has been in the rumor mill since 2017 for Playground Games. And to hear in 2022, 2 years after the announcement at an Xbox Summer Showcase, that it's in the early stages can be pretty deflating for some people. Now we're going to take a look at the job listing over on LinkedIn, and you'll see at the top there, the sentence has changed to Playground Games is looking for an experienced senior rendering specialist to join the Fable team. You will have a rare opportunity to shape the technology used to build a large-scale AAA title. So they got rid of things like open world action RPG title. They got rid of the project at an early stage, all that stuff. Maddie from the editing room here. So as I was working on this video, it was brought to my attention that there was a very eerily similar job listing from an article in 2019 that has an exact same description as the rendering engineer one that we were just talking about. In this one in particular, it's a lead UI engineer, and it still mentions that the project is at an early stage in development. So you can likely very safely assume that this was a mere copy and paste. It was not the first time, however, that Microsoft has been burned by a job listing, so I don't want to take this a mile and run with it, but I was re-listening to my conversation afterwards in light of potential speculation of maybe Microsoft having any type of game being mismanaged, and I still thought the conversation was interesting and something that we could end up encountering if it's not Fable, something else down the line. So I do want to leave it in the video, but also bring to light that this is very likely just a copy and pasted job listing. And with that, back to the original video. That said, in light of a lot of recent Xbox news, again, this is only theorizing, speculating, all that good stuff, but in light of the recent delays, the initiative losing half their staff when we thought things were going well, them bringing in Crystal Dynamics, I thought that was a little questionable. Now it makes a lot more sense with those reports. Of course, what's happening with Undead Labs, where that game is apparently also still stuck in pre-production and was announced around the same time frame as Fable. If you take an honest look at what's happening at Xbox, it sometimes doesn't feel too far-fetched that Fable may be still a ways out. You have to remember, though, and I'll give Playground Games the benefit of the doubt, they've earned it. They've made some of the best racing games in the industry, but right there, racing games. They're going from racing games at a different speed, scale, scope, feel, everything. Combat for the first time. They're doing all these things that Forza Horizon is not. Forza Horizon is a completely different beast from a Fable game. The choices, the consequences, the morality meter. I wouldn't be surprised if we're still in a pretty early stage, which is why I've been saying a lot in my videos that I'm really expecting Fable to be punted to next summer showcase and could be set up as a potentially fall 2023 title, but honestly, it could be likely it is a early 2024 title. And that's something I would hate to see because I am hungry for a new Fable game. But this is where we go back to our last news story about a remastered collection of games. And one series that needs to be put out there more than I'd say Gears, which is still relevant, is Fable. Xbox and Lionhead, I feel, gradually damaged Fable, right? You had Fable 1 was amazing. Fable 2 was also amazing. Fable 3, extremely flawed and overhyped. I still find it charming, but let's be really honest with ourselves. It didn't quite deliver what Molyneux had promised. It goes down into the dirt, and then we have Fable Legends. We're like, what is this thing? Lionhead shuts down. Fable's this kind of ugly IP now. People need to be reminded, kind of like with what happened with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, that Fable is great. I mean, I just played Fable Anniversary again last year, doing my 2021 review for that game. I did a 2022 review for Fable 2, and we'll eventually do Fable 3. So there's, to me, just a lot of exciting content there that's being left forgotten. And there are definitely amendments you can make, like those loading screens to open up your inventory menu in Fable 3, that they could definitely do in some type of remastered trilogy. And if it is in the early stages of development, which I think is something I can chew on a little bit and go like, okay, I'll entertain that, then now would be a great time to look into remastering the trilogy. We still have, from a really long time ago, that Xbox publishing Twitter account clearly teased something happening with Fable and then just reeled it back in immediately. So who knows what's going on, but there seems to be some mismanagement, and I'm not going to give Xbox the benefit of the doubt moving forward. When you look at, not to go on a total rant here, I know we have some more news to get into, but when you look at what happened with Starfield and the way that things were being marketed and presented, and then suddenly it's being delayed significantly, to me, it feels like not everyone's on the same page. That was one of the biggest takeaways I had from it. So I can't give them the benefit of the doubt as much as I love what they're doing right now. Last bit of news. Let's talk about Furi. So this was the game, for those who don't remember, that came from the Game Bakers. And when they brought out the free PS5 update with all this new content, they did not bring it to Xbox. They have now tried in an interview with Vice to bring some clarity to it. In short, the developer believes that it's becoming difficult to get noticed on Xbox if games, especially indie ones, aren't included in Game Pass. Ultimately, Furi has never been included as part of the service, and the fact that it didn't sell well on Xbox led to the DLC not launching on that platform. The direct quote is, "Game Pass is such a fantastic platform for players, so there are possibly more Xbox players than ever interested in indie games. Unfortunately, without Game Pass, it is also very hard for many indie games to be visible on Xbox." The interview also broke down the sales stats for Furi and another of the team's games, Haven, across all platforms. Haven has been a part of Xbox Game Pass, which hugely increased its reach on the platform. However, without that Game Pass support, the Switch version is the most popular console platform by a good margin. Furi, on the other hand, has been on PlayStation Plus, and the sales breakdown for it shows PS Plus had a similar effect to Xbox Game Pass, at least in this instance. If you take Plus out of the equation, PlayStation sales of Furi only accounted for 7% total, compared to 5% on Xbox. Unfortunately, Furi never made its way to Xbox Game Pass, seemingly because any request for it to be added was too far away from the game's launch period. Furi launched on Xbox One before Game Pass was even a thing. Quote, "We talked to the team at Xbox to see if there was a way to get some support, but Furi didn't align with the Game Pass strategy focused on new titles. This is why we took the decision to not bring the DLC to Xbox at launch. The chances the investment was not going to recoup were high," end quote. I really respect the transparency. I still don't think it's a great look. I think they could have explained this better over on Twitter, where they just kind of said, yeah, we're not doing it, because a lot of fans went, well, you don't care about us, so we don't care about you. That damage is done. They probably should have been much more clear like they are here, because I think fans would have understood, like, hey, Xbox has a strategy. That strategy is newer titles. Those titles get exposure through Game Pass, which we are not a part of, and because we're not getting exposure when we bring the update, it's not really going to help our business and thus hurt us, thus preventing us from making more games. If that was the message, that at the end result of this, we can probably make less games, yeah, I would understand that. You have to make calculated decisions. It goes back to exactly my example I talked about when this news first popped, about when you're Square Enix and you're making something like Triangle Strategy, you look at all the platforms, who's the match, who's the best fit. Let's not kid ourselves. Something like Octopath Traveler, Triangle Strategy, yes, I am going to repeat my exact same point. Those games dropping exclusively on Xbox would not do as well as if they were to come, say, exclusively to the Switch, which they did and sold millions of copies. That is the difference. So these businesses have to be honest with themselves, but the way this was handled and communicated was not done well, which is why it became a problem. Because what they're doing here is what every other business, it's what I'm doing with my game. You got to measure out what we're making versus what market would be most interested, what will give us the best legs, what will generate us the most excitement, the most buzz, the most players. It's a lot of things you got to think about. There is, for many players, unfortunately, a business reality to video game development. So again, the biggest bit of feedback I can give here is maybe next time, Game Bakers, just say this. I promise you, we're not all stupid. We will understand where you're coming from. And with that, you can educate some people, because many people don't know a thing about game development, especially the business side of it. So that's all we got in today's video. Again, a ton of news to go over. So pretty exciting, interesting stuff. Curious to see where Xbox carries things into this showcase and if things will remain quiet moving forward. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of everything we discussed in this video? Fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.